Last week, we talked through the practices of serving and generosity. Take a moment to discuss with your group what you reflected on this last week and maybe what you're called to do.
So when I went to college, I went to school at the U of A. And I can remember one day I am walking down some stairs to my next class. It could have been humanities, history, algebra. It could have been any one of those things. Definitely wasn't biology. I didn't do biology. And in that moment, as I'm going down those stairs, I see this little tiny kid, maybe 4 years old, come running around the corner, and he stops. And as he stops, he looks at me, then he looks kind of behind me and looks up the stairs behind me, and then I see him turn around, and he starts talking to somebody behind him. He turns around, and he says, "Grandma, there are more stairs." And in that moment, after he says that, he does like a little happy jig and dances all around and celebrates. And after he does that jig, he starts running back up the stairs. And I watch this all happen, and I don't know what's going on because I don't see Grandma anywhere. And just a moment passes, and all of a sudden, Grandma comes around the corner, and she pauses, and she leans on the railing. And I wonder what she's going to do in this moment. And she could have done many things. One of the things she could have done is she could have yelled at whatever the kid's name was to slow down, quit leaving her behind. Or she could have yelled, "Hey, slow down, because there's people on the stairs, and you're going to run into them and hurt them or yourself." But Grandma didn't do any of those things. Grandma sat there, leaned on the railing for a moment, and she started smiling. And I realized what she was doing was she was taking joy in her grandson's joy and the celebration that he was having because there were more stairs. So in our final week of this study, we're going to look at the practice of celebration. And this is kind of a fun one because initially celebration might not be one of those things that we would consider to be a practice or should be on this list of practices. But what we're going to discover actually is that celebration is a key element and component to all these other practices that we're doing. If celebration is something that we can find ourselves weaving and integrating into our lives, it's going to be something that gives all these other practices energy and momentum as we do them. You know, one of the things that we can often miss when we read the Old Testament is that God finds a way to weave celebration into the life calendar of his people. And then when we go to the New Testament, we go to the very beginning of the book of John, we see John telling the story of Jesus at a wedding and making more wine because the party and the celebration need to continue. And this is one of the first things he does. Celebration is at the heart of the way of Christ. It's at the heart of following Christ because celebration brings joy and manifests joy. And when we find ourselves joyful, we find ourselves full of energy, an energy that we bring to following Christ and following God. And the really cool thing about this is that joy starts to let us see the goodness in and of the world around us. And so we're actually starting to just bathe ourselves and sit ourselves in the midst of the joy that's all around us. So before we go and look at the practices of celebration and how we can practice celebration, I want to take a quick moment to just look and see at what celebration does in our lives and how it impacts our lives. One of the most important things to realize as we go through this idea of celebration and this practice is that celebration is not simply about a joy or something that's earned. It's true, at times we're going to be celebrating accomplishments of ourselves or others, but the key to this practice of celebration is to be able to, in addition to celebrating those accomplishments, find moments to celebrate something where nothing is accomplished, but it's just a moment for celebration and joy. Is that celebration is not simply about a joy or something that's earned. It's true, at times we're going to be celebrating accomplishments of ourselves or others, but the key to this practice of celebration is to be able to, in addition to celebrating those accomplishments, find moments to celebrate something where nothing is accomplished, but it's just a moment for celebration and joy. First thing is that celebration keeps us from taking ourselves too seriously. Have you ever tried to celebrate being grumpy? Have you ever tried to celebrate with a really serious, stern face? You can't do it. Celebration forces us to let our guards down and open up and be able to laugh at ourselves, but laugh at the world around us as well. Second thing is that celebration helps us relax and enjoy the good things around us. We talked a little bit before about seeing the goodness in the world. And celebration, it causes us to pause, relax, and enjoy everything that's going on. And when we do that, we tend to spot and celebrate the good things that are happening, the good things that are going on in the world around us, the beauty that's there. And this all happens because we've simply paused and allowed ourselves to celebrate. Third thing is that celebration gives us perspective. Celebrating, pausing, celebrating, being joyful, it can help us see that life is about far more than what we've accomplished or done. And at the same time, it can help us see that life is about far more than all those things that we're seeing on the news or on social media. Another way to practice celebration is to enjoy and relish the creativity of others. Is there a particular art piece that you like, or a style of art that you like? Or maybe it's going to a museum and simply appreciating all the stuff that other people have done in this world. Maybe there's music that you love to listen to. Maybe you've got kids and you love to see the creativity that they come up with when they're playing imaginary games, or when they're drawing, or when they're doing whatever it is that they love to do, but they're using their mind and their creativity in so many beautiful and special ways. Another would be take advantage of the already established holidays that existed in our culture. Think about it. We've got Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. You have all these days that are already set up and meant for celebration. But one of the things that happens is that we can find ourselves slipping into stress and uncelebratory practices when these things arrive. Think about Christmas. We're always thinking about what's the right gift to get somebody, and there's some stress in this last minute shopping. And then if you're hosting any of these holidays, you're always wondering, okay, am I going to have enough to feed everybody? Where's everyone going to sit? And you're caught up in the hours and hours of preparation and hosting, so that by the end of the day, you're just exhausted and want to sleep rather than being able to spend time with family. So in these moments, in these already established days, go ahead and set aside the things that you may want to feel yourself being pulled to do, and rather just spend time celebrating. It's okay to pause and rest and be with each other. Another one is to celebrate important moments in life that may not be obvious. And what I'm talking about are things like, you finish a project at work, or your student finishes a big project for school. Celebrate that. Or maybe it's you get a promotion or a raise. Take a moment to celebrate as a family. Or maybe it's your student makes the honor roll. There are multiple things that aren't quite as obvious as those big holidays, but if we pause and celebrate and take joy in them, we'll find ourselves incorporating and integrating celebration as a practice into our lives. Another way to practice celebration is to make sure you have small daily moments of celebration. If you love Starbucks coffee, when you go through that drive-thru or go up and order that coffee, take joy in the fact that you're getting to drink your favorite coffee. Or maybe it's those days you get to go to Chipotle and you love Chipotle like I do. Celebrate that. Enjoy it. Or perhaps it's, did you get 8 hours of sleep last night? That's something worth celebrating. Or if you go to the gym and you finish your workout, and as you're walking out, celebrate the fact that you were able to get through that whole workout and enjoy it. The last practice, or the last way that we could practice celebration, is one of my favorite ones, and it's simply the idea of feasting. Most of our lives we go through and it's relatively normal and the same. But when it comes to celebration, every now and then, we want to feast, we want to splurge. So, if you really love filet mignon, or you love a certain cut of steak, or if there's a meal that you love and you don't have it very often, sometimes, for no reason, just splurge. Make it your day of celebration, your meal of celebration. If you don't get to go to the movies too often, go to the movies on a day. Again, whatever it is, look for moments that you can feast, that you can splurge, that you can enjoy the bounty of the world around you.
Last week, we talked through the practices of serving and generosity. Take a moment to discuss with your group what you reflected on this last week, and maybe what you're called to do.